So I actually worked on a fighting game event. It was the first fighting game event I've worked on in like 2 years. Last one was the Tekken World Tour Finals in 2019. This one was the Guilty Gear Strive Break the Walls Invitational event. And what I kind of wanted to do is go a bit behind the scenes and explain some of the process of organizing the event, putting it together. Now, I do want to put a disclaimer that this is not going to dive into how, the event was pitched and, budgets and like basically all the biz dev stuff that went into it, because it wouldn't be fair to the people that I work with to put this event together. What we're going to talk more about is just kind of the creative process and thought process into putting together the show and why certain segments or choices were made. But let's jump into it. So before we start, just wanted to say thanks to Bandai Namco Entertainment Asia and Arc System Works. They really supported this event and let the whole team be really creative in how the event was executed. But before we go into what specifically was done for the event, I want to talk about what the goals of the event were. So the goals of the event were to show to a wider audience the different players in Southeast Asia, show how skilled they were, but more importantly, to show the communities that they were from. So the reason why we wanted to highlight communities is that this is a new Guilty Gear, and if you followed the coverage for it, you know that this Guilty Gear was designed to be more accessible to a wider audience by improving things like netcode. So considering that there would likely be a lot of new Guilty Gear players that would be watching this, and especially since it was in Southeast Asia in the time zone, like if this was their first exposure to Guilty Gear Strive, the goal is for them to be like, this looks really cool, the players seem really fun and nice, and look, there's a community by me in my country that I can reach out to, and I can find their Facebook page, their Discord group, I can join it and compete in their tournaments. That's the goal, is to get more players playing, because I feel that the real hook of the fighting game community is not, well, the games are important, of course, you need to enjoy the games, but the thing that keeps you around year after year, sequel after sequel, is the people that you meet at tournaments and at events, and finding someone's house that you can play on and, come over and hang out and go into tournaments, meeting up, traveling together. This is really the community that keeps people invested in the game. So we wanted to highlight those communities. And also, it's a new game, new characters, new netcode. So we used a variety of tactics to try and basically amplify this and achieve those goals. So we're going to talk about some of those right now. So this was a double elimination online tournament, and there's been tons of online tournaments, and pretty much all the pro tours pivoted to online. But I wanted to have a different feel to this. Now, first, you want to prioritize player experience. So, you don't want them to be playing laggy matches against each other. So one of the things was, before each player was selected and signed on, they needed to assure that they had a quality internet connection, and they needed to agree to do ping tests. So basically playing matches against the other players to make sure that everyone was comfortable with the potential lag or delay, and that it wasn't unplayable. If it was unplayable, then they couldn't join. The other thing is I feel like fighting game players are some of the most expressive and emotional players. So the team asked all the players that would join to have a webcam. So basically they'd have a webcam feed so you could see their face while they're playing the game. So you could see all the pop-offs and everything. I felt this was really important. So thankfully both of these things worked out. Now, it was still within launch period of Strive. And no matter how much you test the internet, you really can't defeat, you have to pray to the internet gods, especially with ISPs in certain countries, and it didn't always work out. So sometimes we were kicked out of spectator and we missed a couple matches. But dealing with Philippines internet, like it can be hard to make sure that the matches stay connected. So when we talk about the players, like I said, this was getting different players throughout Southeast Asia, and I'm not an expert on the communities in Southeast Asia, so you need community management experts. So on the elephant side, Jello and Kuni knew all the players, so they worked to find them and get them involved in the event, talk with the community leaders. Different communities found different ways to pick who would represent them. But there's one thing, like the goal was to hopefully get a bunch of different players that play different styles and play different characters. The challenge with that is that when there's a prize pool, people play to win, not necessarily play to show off the game or have fun. So in the sense, there was a lot of repeat characters. So I would change things in the sense that everyone gets paid an appearance fee so that they maybe have character diversity and you see more of the game. But regardless, every different community was pretty easy to work with. In this broadcast, I wanted to incorporate some educational stuff. So I wanted players to kind of learn some basics about the game and learn from the matches that they're watching and why certain things were important in certain matches. Now, the traditional way to do this is with replays, but the problem with replays is you need to hope that the replay operator is an expert in the game so they know what segments of the match to pull out. And then the commentators are usually busy just talking about the match and doing an ad read that they have too much going on to be able to communicate with the replay operator and hope that they pull up the clips that they think are important in the moments that they think are important. And then there's necessarily not a context to the moment. Like there might be an option select and the commentator might not have time to explain what the option select is. They might only just say that was a great option select. So the way you can kind of deal with this is by having an analyst desk. So an analyst is going to focus on specific moments of the match and talk about them. So what we did is we brought on High Fight, who's pretty much a live social media analyst for matches, always pulling clips and explaining what's going on. And we wrote out a list of mechanics in the game that would likely happen, Roman cancels and frame traps, and picked mechanics that would most likely happen in the match so that after every match, the replay operator would be looking just for that mechanic to happen, pull together the clips, and since High Fight also knew that this is what we were looking at, he could talk briefly about the match, but also about how this specific mechanic could apply to the footage. Now, did it work perfectly every time? No, in the first couple times, there was kind of just sorting this out. I think one of the big challenges with replays and just more production features to every fighting game broadcast is budget. Like every time you want to incorporate something, it needs more people, like not just the person talking about it, but the replay operator, it needs a producer, it needs someone like figuring out how this is all going to work. But thankfully, it was a new feature, but it was kept somewhat simple, and the team kind of figured it out as the broadcast went along, and I think the segments got better as the show went forward. Now, the feature of the broadcast that I was most excited about was kind of like the media content plan building up to the event. So of course there was announcement trailers and highlights and clips and post-event stuff, but we were also doing profiles on each of the players, like little interviews to introduce them and their communities and why you should care about them, what their rivals might be going into the tournament. And I was happy to do this because I got to use my toys and equipment and film some interviews, which is something that I've really been wanting to do content-wise. And thankfully, Seo, who was the eventual winner, was the player that we got to interview, so that kind of all worked nicely together. The problem is that you're dealing with players who are working and are in different, well, not two different time zones, but they all have different schedules, so it's hard to find a time to interview them. And then since the project needed to be done within like 3-4 weeks, so you need to find time to edit it. And then there was an additional curveball on top where it needed to be localized for Taiwan. So things needed to be translated and subtitled. So while there was a specific time period to get these done, to get these posted on socials, unfortunately with the translation, just couldn't be done. But I think it really helped, at least at the top half of the program, to have these little moments to kind of let you know who these players are, what they're like, what their communities are about, and build that audience connection and investment in the program and the broadcast. Now, with any event you put together, especially when you go reach out for sponsors or partners, there needs to be KPIs. There needs to be like what tangible benefit, ROI, performance did we have from this, and how did this benefit us? Now, for a lot of things, this main KPI is viewership. How many people watch this? So you need to get as many eyeballs and as much investment into this and people talking about it, and did it have any effect on the community? So on one hand, the best way to bring more eyeballs on stuff is to get, people online to tweet about it, especially popular people. So while we did work with local commentators and local community leaders to help promote it, we did want to get a bigger, wider audience because, as many eyeballs as we could to get on it to, kind of help in the reporting in the end. So we actually brought on High Fight that helped with this, and then also Kizuke, who was the commentator that remoted in. And having them help promote this event definitely got more eyeballs and stuff, and it was fun to work with new people as well, because I'd never worked with High Fight or Kizzy on a broadcast before, and they were super professional, super easy to work with. Now, I can't tell you what the social media strategy was and how we planned it out, because that's all like information each company has to find out for their own. But, at a base level, like if you're putting together an event, communicate with your players and let them know that this is a symbiotic relationship. Like the more they promote the event, the more people go to it. The bigger the event gets, the more that the players can be offered, like bigger prize pools, more exposure, more sponsorship, which they can then in turn use to monetize. Like, hey, I went to this event, had 50,000 people watching me, put your logo on my jersey, so 50,000 people can watch and maybe buy your product. But yeah, it's really important for the players in the event to promote each other, to help each other grow, and have some kind of strategy in how that can work. Like have a way that you can get as many eyeballs on your event as possible through whatever means or whatever channels that you can. So overall, I think the goal of highlighting different communities and different players was achieved, because no matter what, people know who some of these players are now and know where they can go to play. So I think the overall goal was achieved. Now, on a personal sense, it was interesting to do another fighting game event. I hadn't done one in a while. There were different roadblocks, and it was kind of interesting to work with different personalities again and interact with them and figure out how to make that all work. I will say, if you want to have any success in putting together events, whether it's in fighting games, shooting games, racing games, a lot of money helps, of course. Money opens a lot of doors, but the most important thing is to have a really good team. Like, it will not be successful if you don't have a good team. If you can't delegate things and trust that people will be able to accomplish stuff, then it's either going to fail because no one did it, or you as an organizer are going to completely have a meltdown because you're going to have so many things that you're trying to fix or take care of that it's probably going to be a disaster, and you'll probably want to never do it again. That's something that I learned a long time ago, or throughout my career really, is, I remember when I used to do Wednesday night fights, I would go there by myself, set up all my equipment, run all the broadcast stuff. And I got so burnt out doing that, just schlepping my equipment, where if I would have just asked people for help, like, hey, can you watch the stream for a bit? I'm just going to go outside and relax. Or, hey, I need a couple weeks off. Or, hey, I need to, have some people that can help me set this up. Like, getting help and support and working with a team will make things a lot more enjoyable. It can have a lot of difficulties working at the beginning and getting to know everyone's personalities, but that's the most important team, is to get to know your team, rely on them, and trust that they'll, make the right choices, as long as you've communicated yourself well. But that's about it. Hopefully this video was helpful. Give a like if it was, and subscribe for more videos coming up. We'll see if we do another fighting game event. Probably not this year. I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe, who knows? But yeah, let's see when the next fighting game comes out. Let's see when that Street Fighter 6 teaser trailer finally drops. All right, thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.